So Buddhanussati, we are doing this today. It means reflecting on the sublime qualities of the enlightened Buddha. And it has got to do with our opening of our minds to really understand who the Buddha was and why is it important to have regular reflections. And as explained last week by Sister Paru, we can do this reflection any time of the day. It is not confined to just morning or evening or just on Sundays or Fridays. It can be done anytime during the day so that we gladden. Our hearts become happier when we reflect on these wonderful virtues of the Buddha. So the verse again, we just go through it so that we know how to place it in today's session. It goes, Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vijja Charana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati. And today we will look at Satta, Deva, Manusanam, and Buddho and Bhagava. So these are the three qualities we will study today to get a deeper insight, a deeper understanding into their actual meanings. Because as we go to do our chanting, knowing the meaning of these words, we might not understand the Pali grammar, but as long as we understand the meanings, our hearts can be open to the great virtues, and it will give us some happiness and a lot of mental strength as well. And it's explained here, which is a verse or a passage, two passages actually, from the Visuddhimagga. The Visuddhimagga is not a canonical work. It was written after the Buddha had passed away, but it's still very significant in that it outlines very, very good advice for mental culture and the training of the individual, of the Buddhist, to really understand the Buddha's teachings. So what are the benefits of the collection? Let me share with you these benefits so we know, because it has been described by the great teachers, the great practitioners, the great monks of the past, what exactly are these benefits? So this passage goes, when a bhikkhu, and bhikkhus doesn't just mean the monks and the nuns, it means everybody who is walking the path. If you have decided, if you have dedicated your life, your time, your efforts to walking the path, you can be included in this group called the bhikkhus. So when a bhikkhu is devoted to the recollection of the Buddha, he is respectful and deferential towards the master. He attains fullness of faith, mindfulness, understanding, and merit. And the benefits are, he has much happiness and gladness. He conquers fear and dread. He is able to endure pain. He comes to feel as if he were living in the master's presence. So this is advice on what we should do on a day-to-day basis. If we don't think about the Buddha, if we don't recall his virtues and what actually the Buddha was all about, he becomes a very distant figure. He's quite far away from us. He's not involved in our everyday lives because we don't recall him. We don't bring him into our mind. But if we do this recollection, he's near to us. We know what he is. We know what he has done. And so it would seem that he is right here in this present time. So the last line is, he comes to feel as if he were living in the Master's presence. So one of the things that we should do when we offer incense, when we offer light, when we offer fruits and flowers, is our frame of mind should be, we are not offering to an image. We are not offering to a mass of plaster or of wood or of stone. We are offering to the Master as if he is still here. And then our hearts will be gladdened, will be soothed from all the challenges that we have experienced. And we will feel very close to the Buddha. So the next passage, and his body, or her body, meaning the disciple or the devotee, when the recollection of the Buddha's special qualities dwells in it, the body, as we are thinking of the Buddha's wonderful qualities, become as worthy of veneration as a shrine room. So if we understand it, if we meditate upon it, the reflection is very, very deep and strong. Our body is infused. That means we bring it into our hearts, the qualities of the Buddha. And so we are like a room. We are like the room where people do chanting, people do offerings, people meditate. We are like a shrine room because all these recollections are very strong in our minds. So I share this with dear brothers and sisters because I think the next time we do this chanting and if we do this reflecting, we know how worthy and how rewarding this kind of reflection can be. It's not just let me chant from the books. They are just words printed in the book. Let me chant, and then we get on to the next program, the next event. It should be as we chant, we begin to become closer and closer to the Buddha, as if he is here, still here with us. His mind tends towards the plane of the Buddhas. That means his mind is like the Buddha's mind. And here is a very, very good benefit for us. If he penetrates no higher, that means if the mind doesn't go any higher into insight and wisdom, he is at least headed for a happy destiny after his death or after her death. Which means if we are used to recollecting the Buddha, if we are used to thinking about his virtues, at the time of death, all these recollections will come up to our mind, and we will pass away in a very happy mental state. We think of the Buddha, we think about who he was, what he did, what he has achieved, and the automatic gladness will appear. That is a very good state of mind to pass away in. And we will surely, as explained here in the Visuddhimagga, we will go to a happy state. So these are the rewards. These are the wonderful benefits. So we should do this as often as possible. I discussed during the first talk, introducing the virtues of the Buddha. It is not easy for ordinary human beings to understand the nature of the Buddha. It might seem almost actually impossible that such a being existed 2,600 years ago. You mean he is enlightened? He is also an arahant. He can see the world. He can teach the human beings. He can do so many things. And the devas as well came to see him. Wow, that is really, really wonderful. Is it a fairy tale? Is it something that our teachers just tell us in order to make us more confident? yeah, to make us better Buddhists. Here is the Buddha. So in the beginning, yeah, we will be thinking like this. We are not sure. Yeah, it's just that the teachers tell us about the virtues. So we follow what the teachers teach us. It is when we put the teachings into practice, we study deeper, we understand the teachings in a more significant and meaningful way. That means we bring the teachings, yeah, into our mind and into our hearts, and then we put it into practice by training the mind, yeah, by practicing bhavana and developing both calmness of the mind, composition of the mind, and also insight. And so when we experience the insight and our wisdom develops, then we suddenly have this understanding. If I can experience this little bit of wisdom, yeah, which is right in front of me, it is not abstract, it is not in the book, I can see it for myself. The ability, the scope of the master, of the teacher, of the Buddha must be immense, must be much, much bigger, yeah, than what I know. Therefore, it is true, the enlightenment is like explained in the book, explained by our teachers. And our confidence, our saddha, our faith in the Buddha will really, really be established. It won't be shakeable. So therefore, dear brothers and sisters, you study and you have to practice as well. Calm the mind and then turn the mind towards the intrinsic nature, the real nature of the mind and the body. Yeah. And your understanding of the Buddha, our teacher, will become much, much more meaningful. Yeah. It will really be of value, yeah, to every one of us. So let us take a look at the phrases. The first of the last three virtues is Satta, deva, manusanam. And the common interpretation or translation is, he is the teacher of gods and men. This word Satta, yeah, we know the word deva and we know the word manusa, yeah, manusanam, which means gods as well as human beings, the devas as well as us human beings. The word Satta is, it does mean teacher. There's another word for teacher, yeah, and I'm very honored that some of you call me this word. This word is acharya. But Satta is different from acharya. Yeah, in a way, the work, the function is the same, but the scope is different. Satta means he is the discoverer. He walks the way, yeah, where there was no way before. It's like you go to a thick jungle and then you'll be wondering, how can I go ahead? So the Satta is the one who clears the jungle. Yeah? And later on, he teaches others who become acharya. They become teachers later on. But the first one is the Satta. Yeah? He opens up the way. Yeah? He puts in place the sasana, the dispensation, the foundation of the learning and the discipline, yeah, the study and the practice is laid down by the Satta, yeah, not by the acharya. The acharya will learn from the Satta and he or she then teaches to others. So this meaning is a very, very significant meaning. Yeah, it shows that the Buddha was not an ordinary teacher, because we can read about others, they are also teachers, but they are not in the category, not in the same scope as the Satta. So the Buddha was Satta, yeah, and he taught devas as well as human beings. And I'll show you some pictures of it so that you can get an idea of how people visualize, how they imagine the Buddha teaching non-human beings as well. And he is endowed, he is the teacher endowed with the 7 qualities of a good friend, or Kalyana Mitta Dhamma, which means as a teacher, he wasn't ordinary, he was excellent. Yeah, he was the excellent teacher because he had these great qualities. And so those of us who hope to be good teachers can look at these qualities and hope to develop these in ourselves so that we can be good teachers to those who want to study under us. The first is, he has piyo. He is endearing. That means he is very close to the disciples and the students. It's not like a distance. I am the teacher. I stand here. You are the student. You stand there. The teacher and the student can never bridge that space or that gap. But to the Buddha, he was very different. He was endowed with kindness and compassion. And whatever he did, sometimes he was going on the alms round, getting his food. And people approached him during the alms round. He would still talk to them. He would say, excuse me, I'm eating, please go away. Come back at a later time. He would still accommodate them because of his kindness and compassion. He always had time for those who wanted to learn from him. So this piyo means endearing, very close, very having good relationships with. So a teacher must always have time for his or her students. He must have this quality of, I'm always available to you. Then he is garu. He is worthy of respect because his behavior is exemplary. His teaching is wonderful. He cannot easily be challenged or be equaled. He is so excellent in what he does. So he is garu, worthy of respect. Then he is vata. He speaks effectively. He explains clearly. Every word that is used by the Buddha is effective so that it stirs something in the listener's mind and bring about the insight or enlightenment. Very many lay people, not just the monks, very many lay people listen to the Buddha and they gain the initial stages of enlightenment. During the Buddha's time, there were more Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami among the lay people than in the Sangha. Because you know why? When you attain the initial stages of sainthood, of purity in the Sangha, the Buddha will encourage you to go all the way to arahantship. But the lower stages, the initial stages, mainly are found in the lay community. So there were many Sotapanna within the lay people, Sakadagami, Anagami, maybe less Anagami, but definitely many Sotapanna and many Sakadagami. And sizable Anagami, but mainly among the Sangha, they would be pushed, encouraged and guided towards arahantship. So the Buddha is vata. He speaks effectively and he's able to explain in such a way that you would get it. There is no mistaking what he is saying. Vajana kammo means he is patient with his words. He can slowly explain. Even if you don't get it the first time or the second time, the Buddha will explain in such a way that eventually you would understand. So that is patience with words. And he didn't get irritated. If you don't understand, he would, see why you don't understand. There would be certain levels of ignorance. perhaps very, very strong ignorance in the person. So he would explain again and again and in different ways so that this person will understand. Then he is Gambira Rancha. That means Katang Kata. He is capable of expounding the profound. To the ordinary people, he would explain how to do more dana, how to observe the sila. But to the monks, especially the more learned monks and the deeply, highly practiced monks, he could expound the deep aspects of the Dhamma. So he could explain the simple as well as the very deep. That's what made him a very effective teacher. He could explain at all levels, depending on whom he was talking to. So the level of explanation would always be the right level. He would speak to those with little understanding. He will speak to those with moderate understanding, and he will pitch it to those with deep understanding, all within the same talk. He would cover all areas. But if there was someone who was nearer to enlightenment, then he would pitch that talk specifically for that person. So he explains both the mundane and the supra-mundane. Then he is no chattani niyojaya. He does not lead people, any of his disciples, in wrongful ways. First of all, he is the Buddha. So there's nothing that he does not understand. He could understand whatever he put his mind to. But he does not say things that are not truthful. Because there are some, let's say, there are some teachers who don't quite understand. And therefore, when they are asked questions, they try to make up an answer. And those are not the right answers to that question. But the Buddha would never do that. In fact, there were some times when the person asking a deep question, and the Buddha looked at his mind, and he knew that this person, no matter how the Buddha explained, this person would never understand it. Because the depth of his wisdom, the depth of his intellect was very shallow. So the person would ask the question and the Buddha would just observe noble silence. He would just keep quiet. And the person would ask again and the Buddha would just keep quiet. And he would ask again and the Buddha would just be silent. And finally, the person would get very frustrated and he would walk away, go off, thinking that the Buddha did not know. Actually, the Buddha knew the answer. But if he explained, this person would get the wrong idea. The perception would be wrong. And then he will go and tell others, the Buddha said this, according to his wrong idea. So the Buddha chose not to give any answer at all, in case he was wrongly interpreted. These stories or these incidents reminds me of a story which I heard one time at the Mahasi Sayadaw Meditation Center. And let me relate this very interesting story to you in relation to Satta, Deva, Manusanam. And let me put the next here. Here is a picture, two pictures actually, of the Buddha teaching the Devas in the heavens. It was easy to see the Buddha teaching human beings. But the Buddha also had great compassion for the Devas. It doesn't mean that all Devas were interested in the teachings of the Buddha. But those who had wisdom, those who knew the Buddha, they would come and listen because they had been with the Bodhisatta for a very long time. And I will take you through the sequences. What happened at the Mahasi meditation center was that in the evenings, and everyone was meditating. I think the monks were meditating, and the lay people were also getting up and doing their chores. One of the lay persons became possessed, and he was possessed by a deva, who did not want to appear like how they appeared during the Buddha's time. And he stood up and he asked the monks, is Mahasi Sayadaw here? And the monk said, I'm sorry, because he asked in the very ancient Pali. And some of the monks had to study Pali, told this being that Mahasi, the teacher, was not in the monastery at that time. So the deva said, who possessed this human being, said, all right, I will come again. And the next day, again, he possessed this person. And he said, please take me to Mahasi Sayadaw. So the monks guided him and showed him the way. He paid respects to Mahasi Sayadaw. And then he asked his question. And the Mahasi Sayadaw replied to him. And then he listened. He was very thankful. He paid his respects. And then he took leave. And the person, this lay person, again regained his senses. So there are devas with very, very deep questions still right now, today. They are thinking about the Dhamma. There are things that they do not understand. And so they will come, they will seek out the very, very wise teachers to get clarifications, to get good answers to their very, very deep questions. So here in this picture, you see the deva, the Buddha teaching the devas in the heavens. And the smaller picture is how they accompanied him after the teachings to come down to the earth. Actually, he went to Tawatingsa to teach his departed mother when he was the young prince. The mother died after 7 days. So he remembered the mother who was reborn into Satta, is a higher heaven, but he went to Tawatingsa so that more devas could come and listen to him, teaching the Dhamma. So the Buddha, at the beginning of the verse, we have this line, Samma Sambuddho. Then again, we have Buddho. What does it mean? The Samma Sambuddho and the Buddho are the same. But the Samma Sambuddho is a more specific qualification. That means it explains the achievements of the Buddha in a specific way, that he was fully enlightened and he gained enlightenment by himself. There was no teacher for his enlightenment. When we talk about the Buddha, he is still a fully enlightened one. And he also awakened through his own efforts after a long period of training. Remember, during the first talk, I talked about how long it takes to be a Buddha. It is an unimaginable period of time. We cannot fathom, we cannot put a description in our minds how long it took for this Bodhisatta who would become Gautama, the Buddha, how long he trained to become a Buddha. And becoming a Buddha, he understood, he could see clearly for himself the Four Noble Truths. And he was able to teach it at all levels so that other beings could attain Nibbana. So therefore, he is the supreme teacher who did not hold back anything in his teachings. There were some teachers at that time who did not want his students, their students, to be higher than them. So there would be certain teachings they would hold back. The Buddha was not like that. Whatever you wanted to know, the Buddha would teach it. if it was within your level to understand it. So this is the meaning of the Buddha, or Buddha. And let me give you some further background on the coming or the appearance of the Bodhisatta. Here is a picture of the carving at Borobudur. And some of you have visited Borobudur. You would have seen this carving on the gallery, the side of the Borobudur stupa structure. The being in the middle there that you can see sitting slightly higher was the Bodhisatta, and he was born in the Tusita heaven. After finishing all his training, his development, his achievements, in developing to the fullest possible capacity, the parami or perfections, he was born in Tusita heaven. And he was born as this deva. The common name of the deva is Santusitta. So he was born there and he stayed there for a very long time, waiting for the right time to take birth as a human being. As a deva, they do not achieve Buddhahood. They have to achieve, attain, strive for Buddhahood as a human being, as a manusa, not as a deva. So the status of a human being actually is very high, because it is from here that we understand suffering and we can go beyond the suffering towards enlightenment. So when the time was right, after a great period of time, as the Santusitta Deva, the devas of the 10,000 world systems, it means that there are more world systems than what is existing. They had a feeling and understanding that it was time for the appearance of another Buddha. And they knew that this Santusitta Deva was the Bodhisatta. Yes, because some of them had been with him as he perfected the parami. So they would gather. There was a great gathering in Tusita heaven, and they would invite. There must be an invitation. This is the kind of custom for the appearance of a Buddha. And the Bodhisatta will survey the world with this, looking for these 5 things. He would look at whether it's the right time. He would look at the continent in which he would be born. He would look at the place. Desa means the region or the state to be born. He would look at the clan where he would be born. He would look for a rightful mother where his form he would take formed in the womb of this mother. So therefore, after making the 5 observations, the 5, he would look at the world and see whether it is the right time. Because if it is the wrong time, people would not be interested. Because when people's lives are very long, longer than 1,000 years, they would not understand suffering. So he looked at the time, he looked at the place, he looked at the continent, the clan, the Sakya, and he must be of a very high status, and he found that the timing was right. And so, accepting the invitation of the Devas, he would appear on earth. And here is a picture of the Bodhisatta being born. So he took his place as a human being, the son of a Raja, the son of the virtuous queen Mahamaya. And so that was how he fulfilled his quest, his mission, to appear on earth, strived for the Buddhahood until he gained it. And so on that fateful Vesak evening, there was a newly enlightened Buddha appearing in the world. He gained the enlightenment that he had worked for many lifetimes. And so being perfect, this was the last action, the last the last striving activity he had to put in order to gain the Buddhahood. So you can imagine the devas who had invited him to take birth as a human being, in order to attain Buddhahood. They were observing him. They were following him. And they were thinking, has he gained enlightenment? Because that is the purpose he has come down, and taken birth as a human being. So even as the Bodhisattva sat under the Bodhi tree, the devas did not know. As he gained enlightenment in the evening of that day, they also didn't know, because they are not enlightened beings. They didn't know the nature of enlightenment. All they knew was this person was no longer the same. And so they followed him until he gave the first sermon, the Dhammacakka Pavatana Sutta. And when he gave that sermon, the devas knew that he had achieved what he had come to achieve. Because then the Buddha, in giving this Dhammacakka Pavatana Sutta, where he describes for the first time in our world system, no one had heard this before, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. And then he said, in me bhikkhus, because the five ascetics were around him, and those were the beings that you could see apart from the animals, the deer, because this was delivered, the first sermon was delivered in a park, where there was deer. There were thousands of devas also waiting for the first sermon. And then the Buddha said, in me bhikkhus, in regards to things unheard before, the vision arose, the knowledge arose, the wisdom arose, the higher knowledge arose, the light arose. And that was the declaration. That was the statement he made to all the beings there, that he had gained enlightenment. So he completed his journey. He completed his mission, his quest for enlightenment, which was acknowledged by everyone, every being present in the deer park at that time. So the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, as mentioned, and it had not been heard for a very long time. This was unusual. There had been many teachers in India at that time, but none of them taught the Four Noble Truths the way that the Buddha explained it, in which he described, he stated that existence is dukkha, suffering, and he described the cause of the suffering. He described the end of the suffering, and he outlined the way to the end of suffering, all in the Four Noble Truths. But the deeper characteristics of the Four Noble Truths is actually anicca, dukkha, and anatta. I mentioned this before. When the Buddhas do not appear, intelligent, very wise teachers, those who can understand the nature of life, they would teach anicca and they would teach dukkha. So their teachings would be centered around only two of these characteristics of existence. It is only when the fully enlightened Buddha appears, all three of these characteristics are taught to the world, to all beings. So this is where the Buddha outlined, and he made sure that his close disciples would understand anicca, dukkha, and anatta. as well. Because this anatta, anicca means impermanence. It means always in a state of change, of flux, never staying the same. Dukkha, you can understand, it means unsatisfactoriness or suffering. And it is this anatta that has made the Buddha's teachings unique. There is no other teacher who teaches anatta in this world. It means that there is no permanent self. And because you can penetrate through to understand there is no permanent self, you get rid of this vision, illusion of self, the person will attain Nibbana. So it is interlinked. So anatta is something unique only to the Buddha's teachings. There are some historians, some writers, some authors, some people who say everything that the Buddha taught came out of Hinduism or came out of Brahmanism. There is no anatta teaching in Brahmanism. You cannot find that the teachings of the Buddha are unique. There's no other teaching like it. It is the teaching of an enlightened being, not an ordinary human being. So we go on to Bhagava. Bhagava means he is the Blessed One. It is a word meant to describe very unusual and very excellent people. And in the Visuddhimagga again, we can find a very good meaning of this word Bhagava. It says here that the Bhagava is a term signifying the respect and veneration given to him, meaning the Buddha. This is a special word. This word Bhagava also can be used for other very, very noble people, great teachers. But in the context of the Buddha's teachings, when we say Bhagava, it can only mean the Buddha. So it signifies the respect and veneration given to the Buddha as the highest of all beings and distinguished by his special qualities. He is a unique being. There is no other one like him in this world. So Bhagava can also mean he is the fortunate one, which means to say his life, when he set out to attain enlightenment, he achieved the enlightenment that he set out to gain. So when you can gain or achieve your ambition, you are fortunate. Because there are many people, they have all kinds of ambitions. I want to be like this, I want to be like that, but they fall short. They are not able to. So they are not fortunate. Some people want to become very rich. They want to become millionaires. Maybe today millionaire is not enough. They want to become billionaires. So they fall short of becoming the billionaire. But they are still very rich. So they are not as fortunate as those who achieve what they set out to do. So because the Buddha achieved what he wanted, what he was his ambition, his aim, he is the fortunate one. So we end the verse with a description we call the Bhagava. He is very, very fortunate, and he is the best of all living beings. If we have a pyramid of all the living beings, and we include the devas and the brahmas and the human beings and the animals and the ghosts, at the tip of all the beings in this universe is the Buddha. And he got there by himself. He achieved it by his own efforts. That is why he is the highest of all beings. So with that, I've come to the end of my explanation. With understanding and deep respect, let us now, dear brothers and sisters, let us recollect the sublime virtues of the Buddha. which I hope now, because we have studied it, yeah, and discussed it in such detail, when we recite it, the qualities should come to our minds. So now, let us recite it. Yeah, let us bring all these qualities to mind. Itipiso Bhagava. Yeah, the same way, he is the great being, the Bhagava, the fortunate one. He is the Arahant, meaning, what does it mean? The Arahant. He is without defilement. He is the worthy one because he has vanquished. He has destroyed the defilements. He is the Samma Sambuddho, enlightened through his own efforts. Vijjacharana Sampanno. He is possessed both of discipline, yeah, and knowledge. He can do it and he can explain it. He is Sugato. He has walked the way very, very well. He walked the Noble Eightfold Path, and then he taught the Noble Eightfold Path. He is Lokavidu. He is the knower of the worlds. He knows the worlds through the 6 channels. What are the 6 channels? The 6 senses. So he knew the world. We can only understand the world through our senses. So that is why he is called knower of the world, because he knew how we grasp the world through our 6 senses. So we must reflect upon it. How do we know the world? Yeah, through the 6 senses. And the Buddha knew the world perfectly. He is the Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati. He is the great trainer. If you can be trained, if you can be taught, if you can be instructed, even though you are very stubborn, a person who is very stubborn can be trained by the Buddha. Yeah, he knows how to teach people of all states and of all degrees of wisdom and understanding. He is the Satta, deva, manusanam. He is the teacher, not just the teacher. He is the great establisher of the sasana for the devas and the human beings. He is the Buddha, means he is enlightened to teach the 4 noble truths, yeah, to show people the way out of suffering. And he is the Bhagava, yeah, which means he is the highest of human beings. He is the fortunate one to have achieved his aim, his mission, his ambition. So knowing this, when we chant this, let us recollect it. And as explained in the Visuddhimagga, there will be a lot of happiness in our minds when we chant this with full understanding. Yeah. So when the next chance you get, brothers and sisters, just chant it and let the qualities appear in your mind and see how these qualities will chase away the darkness, the cobwebs, you know, the difficulties in our mind, because we now understand the qualities and virtues of the Buddha. With that, I thank you, yeah, for your kind attention.